Welcome to Undressing Intimacy, where we cut through the bullshit
Greggy,
so we can get naked.
you can't say that.
Why not? How would you say it then?
Well, maybe more like, welcome to Undressing Intimacy, where we undress emotionally so we can undress physically.
That's exactly what I said. Not sure what the problem is. Welcome to episode.
Number 45
What a week.
and a half.
We
2
have
weeks.
been going nuts and crazy. We just got back from Jacksonville, Florida, where we took our grandbaby and daughter to find their daddy and husband and settle into Jacksonville as they're stationed there for a little while. We had a great time, enjoyed getting the house all set up, went on some adventures. We got to go visit some wild horses, which was fantastic.
On the beach.
On the beach, on an island. Really enjoyed that. The only sad part about the whole thing was
Leaving.
I think worse than dropping any kid off at college is leaving your grandbaby.
Yes.
For sure. But we rushed home just in time to pack up a trailer and move our youngest daughter out of her apartment. And so we're going.
And in like another week, we'll move our son back to school. And then I think we'll move our other son. So again, August is, last year we moved everybody, including ourselves.
Might as well do it again.
Yeah.
So if we're dragging a little, we apologize. We wanted to jump on here really to have a chat about something we find really important. We see a pattern through most of our clients, and really it was in ourselves too. The pattern is a question about what is our motivation to do things? We talked about it a little bit when we talked about the emotional maturity levels and that we go through. And really when we come to the last maturity level, we're acting out of a place of integrity in ourselves and making choices based on the things we know are best for us. Not because someone told us so, not because we read it somewhere or heard it somewhere, but we truly believe that that's the choice we want to make out of agency for ourselves.
So when you said the other emotional levels, let me just fill in the blanks there. So he's talking about the stages of development, and our why often in the first stage is motivated by reward or fear of punishment. In the second stage, it's rewarded. Our why is often based on the social approval of others or belonging to groups or getting external validation of some sort. And what he's talking about in this third stage is the why is internally motivated based on your own integrity and desires and what it is you want to create, as opposed to fear, others' opinions, people pleasing, or external rewards.
So why is this so important when it comes to having an intimate relationship, babe?
It's so important because the internal motivation is actually what determines the outcome. And so I can do the very same behavior or say the very same words. I can do it from a first stage of a fear of punishment. I can do it from a second stage trying to gain some type of external pleasing or validation, or I can do it from a third stage of integrity. And based on where I am taking that action or those words from, it's going to determine the outcome of them.
Yeah, I think if we get down to the bottom line, and we talk about this a lot, that ultimately to have an intimate relationship, we want to be able to choose each other, right? Mm-hmm. And that choice has to come out of a place that is integral to us, that we find from our integrity.
Not from some external place.
No, not because we're told to do it or someone said we should.
Or we're trying to avoid punishment, or we're rebelling to try and find yourself. That's another way people try and define.
Right.
Or trying to get someone's approval. All of those aren't really an active choice. They're choosing or behaving or speaking or acting to try and get that sense of self from someone else.
Right. And I find that as we dig into this, a lot is driven by anxiety.
Well, anxiety is a part of being human. Like there's no way around having anxiety. Like it is innate to being human. However, the way that you engage with the anxiety when it comes and whether you just use it to help you define yourself or whether you use it to try and get that control from others is really a determining factor.
Right. And it comes down to the interesting side of the coin because we're talking about having choice, right? And agency. And I think our anxiety grasps at thinking we're not going to be able to have choice or we're not going to have freedom to be able to make choice. And we want to control the situation, control what other people think of us, control how they act towards us. Ultimately, it's in that control where we lose that
Control.
choice and
It's
agency.
the many paradoxes in relationships. You grasp for control, and what it does is actually disempowers you. It has less control when you actually surrender to not trying to control, when you actually are more empowered.
But our primitive brains are screaming at us like,
Yeah.
we're going to die. This is
Yes.
bad. That person may not like us. We're going to be kicked out of the tribe.
Yes.
We're going to starve to death. We're going to be whatever you put on the end of it. It is just literally screaming at you. And that's why sometimes we make choices out of that nagging from our primitive brain or that fear or the anxiety that comes up from those thoughts of what could happen.
Or what if others don't love me? Or what if I make the wrong choice? Or what if others see me doing this thing? Or, and they may not approve of me.
Yep. And I find that we also do it a lot out of not be fully invested and have another place to place blame. And usually I see this a lot around religion and God. And we want to say, well, God told me I need to stay in this marriage. Or God said I had to go do this. Or I prayed and I was told that God told me this. And don't get me wrong, I believe we have a loving Father in heaven. We have a God that loves us and cares about us. But the God that I know, and ultimately the reason why we're here on earth, was to be given that agency to choose out of our own integrity.
To develop the integrity
to develop that, to learn, to grow, to make mistakes, to not get it right, to take ownership when we don't get it right, not to be perfect, not to be led around and told every little thing we should do. It is not meet for us to be commanded in all things, period. But yet that's where we fall back on.
Talking about a blind obedience or trying to pass responsibility onto some type of authority figure, whether that's God or a leader or something like that, instead of taking that individual accountability.
Right. If you can say, well, I got a prompting and God told me to do this, if it doesn't work out, then it's not your fault. I was being faithful and I followed what God told me to do.
So you think people use that as a scapegoat?
Absolutely.
Okay.
They use it not to make choices. They use it not to speak out of integrity.
So it's a misuse of religion.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I often have to ask my clients, like, okay, what do you want?
Not in an indulgent, selfish way, but in a self-defining, accountable way. I'm being responsible for yourself.
I don't think God cares at that point. He cares about you, but he doesn't want to make every choice in your life for you.
He doesn't want you to be a robot for him.
No.
He wants you to develop in your full capacity as a feeling, thinking, choosing individual.
Yes. And what makes it really clear to me is my experience as I became a parent.
Tell me more.
Because at times I thought maybe this agency thing was the wrong choice, that we should, as a parent, you're like, maybe Satan's plan of forcing us to do this isn't such a bad idea. There was moments in my life when I got frustrated with my kids. But ultimately, as I looked at them and I watched them grow. So you're saying there
were moments you really wanted to control your kid?
Absolutely. Yes. Because you felt like you knew best for them and you didn't want them to be hurt and you were concerned about them. But the moments I have gotten closest to my kids and enjoyed them the most is when I allowed them to be who they were and to make choices and to make mistakes.
And to love them through
it. To love them unconditionally. And to me, I'm like, there's no doubt in my mind that's the heavenly parents that we have.
That love us unconditionally, are rooting for us. are trying to help teach and guide us, but want us to take accountability
Yes, make
and
our
learn.
own choices.
Not in an indulgent, selfish
No.
way, but in a way that allows for development, expansion, and learning.
I once coached a couple and we had gone probably for 40 minutes and I was listening to the situation they're in and it was not in a good place
Their marriage
at
wasn't.
all. Their marriage was nowhere in a good place. The relationship was not in a good place. It was miserable for both of them. It was harmful, damaging. And I turned to look at the husband and I asked this simple question: why are you still in this marriage? And he looked at me without hesitating and said, because I promised God and God told me to stay in this marriage and I'm not going to break that promise. And his wife was sitting right next to him. Now, listen to it as the wife. Can you imagine being asked, why are you with me? And the only answer you can get is because I'm not going to break a promise to God. Is that really what God wants us to do? Is that really how we choose each other? Is that really how we have an intimate relationship?
I think what it was passing the responsibility off, saying, I'm not willing to actually choose her, but being told that I need to stay. So I'm not choosing. I'm not choosing to leave, but I'm also not choosing to love.
Right. And you're not choosing the other person. And like I said, if we just boil everything out, every single relationship that I've coached, and if I look at our own, ultimately, the basic thing that we're looking for is to be chosen.
Mhm. And in order to be chosen, you have to first choose.
You have to first choose, and you have to do it out of willingness, not because you've been told by someone you had to do it.
Or manipulated or controlled or pressured or
Right. That's not choice.
no, it's not choice. And I think I see relationships really change when that surrender happens, right? The surrender of, I have so much anxiety about whether this person will choose me. And instead of trying to control from that anxiety, they say, so I am going to go all in. I'm not going to try to control. So the surrender is of their control of the other person,
Yes.
of pressuring them, of manipulating them, of trying to get them to do and be, of keeping track of all the ways that they aren't doing what, you know, they want them to do, and surrendering into, but I'm the one who can make the choice. So I am going to choose to be all in.
Right.
I imagine, like, I actually see the poker table,
Pushing
sometimes
all the chips
we
in.
play Texas Hold'em poker and you say, I am just going to be all in. I'm going to choose you. I'm going to do this unconditionally. I'm not going to hold anything back. I'm not going to do it with resentments. I'm not going to do it with if then conditions. I am just going to be all in. That's the surrender I'm talking about. Not surrendering to, oh, well, I'm here, so I just have to stay. So God told me. I don't think that's surrender. I don't think that's actually making a choice. It's saying, I see what my choice is, and I'm choosing to either be all in or to not.
Right.
Like taking that brave, brave choice.
And don't get me wrong, like I 100% believe that some relationships should no longer be relationships, right? That there is a point where it is damaging emotionally to the person because the relationship can't get to a place where we can choose. And in that case, we definitely should be getting out of the relationship. But we spend so much time wanting to change the other person. I have coached for hours and hours, and if they would just do this, or I can't love them because of that, or this is the thing that drives me crazy. We need to change this. We need to change this. We need to change this. In the end, you have no control over the other person. That's what makes this relationship so difficult. That's what brings out our worst parts, right? Our most vulnerable parts is because we have no control over the other person. Even if we want to change them, we can't. They get to choose.
Mm-hmm.
And people can get really nasty and controlling when they try to do that.
Snarch says marriage can bring out the most sadistic sides of us.
Right.
And I think all of us have really, really great intentions and good parts, but we also have the capacity to do a lot of harm.
Yes.
And in that capacity to do harm, it often happens when we are unwilling to face our own anxiety and choose for ourselves. And we're trying to go in and control someone else and their choices. That's where we really harm each other.
And it really took the point where we had to decide, I think, in our relationship, I had to say, do I love Amy just the way she is right now?
Not a past version of me or what I had the capacity to be, but like in my own flawed state as I was right then.
Right. And for me, it was the lack of sexual intimacy that was really painful for me
Mm-hmm.
and all the baggage around that. And we've talked about how we had to unpackage all that. But it literally came down to the point where I had to say, do I choose Amy right now with the way that our sex life is right now? And am I okay with that? And do I choose that? I willing to find out why it's hard to be married to me, to look at myself, because it's those things that I could control.
Mm-hmm.
But I fought so many years. If Amy reads this book, if she watches this video, if she takes this program, then she'll look more like me. She'll have a higher desire and she'll want to be with me. And that means she'll want to choose me. And if she can choose me, then I'll be okay with myself. And when I peeled that back and said, that doesn't matter, the ultimate question was, do I choose you right now?
Mm-hmm. My choice for myself was the same but different. Obviously, I wasn't choosing you based on high or low desire. My question was, can I choose you exactly as you are, knowing that this was at the time when pornography was still a part, knowing that pornography could be a part of our story and our lives, and knowing that your strengths and your weaknesses and your flaws were who you were. And could I choose those without holding myself back? Because mine was more about keeping a part of me hidden to protect myself. And so my choice was really, am I willing to be completely all in and not hold anything back?
I think that not only hidden from me, but parts that were hidden from yourself
Mm-hmm.
that you hadn't been willing or weren't willing to explore because of the vulnerability and danger that you felt there.
Right. One of the most painful things I had experienced up to that point was losing my father. He died suddenly of a heart attack. And I think there were parts of me that were afraid to love you completely because I might lose you. And so it was like this protective, don't go all the way in, because then if you lose him, you'll still be okay. But in doing that, I wasn't actually fully choosing you. Like I was protecting. There were walls and barriers and things that were held back. And sometimes choosing is about being willing to step through those too.
I think it's always that.
Yeah.
Are we willing to take on the vulnerability necessary to choose
Mm-hmm.
without holding anything back, without putting the onus on anyone else?
Right. Because when you
A
do that, you just
counselor,
get resentful.
a church leader, God Himself.
Don't misuse God.
Right.
It's not that we don't believe in a God and have faith. We think that is a very valuable part of life. But there's a misuse of it that is dodging the accountability of integrity and your own ownership.
When we can't settle things in our mind tries to make sense of them by putting them in a box, I think. By making sense of like, okay, well, I can understand it if it's in this context, within this lens. The culture, religion helps us draw those boxes around that to be careful, right? So it says you're protected if you're in this box. And even putting that onus on the culture itself or religion itself takes that agency away from ourselves and takes choice making out of our own integrity and places it somewhere else so we can measure it. I am going to give to charity because I've been commanded by God to do it, as an example. So we put that in that box. It gives us boundaries to measure whether we're good or not, right? And whether we're okay. And if we ever step outside that box and make choices out of our own integrity, it's scary as hell.
Why is it so scary?
Because now we have to take our own onus. We have to take 100%. If it goes right, fine, we can take, hey, it went right. But if anything goes wrong, we have nothing to fall back on other than, hey, I made that choice. And because we think we have to have this sense of perfection, that we have to do everything in a way that makes us perfect and make the right choices all the time, we've lost the sense of choice making is as important to make some bad choices and learn from them as it is to make all the right choices.
Right. Failure is really something that we kind of wired to be afraid of. Again, all of us start in that first stage where we learn to gain our sense of self by either external rewards or external punishments. And failure comes in like that fear of being punished, that fear of not getting the reward, that fear of not being enough. And when you can encounter failures as opportunities to grow and learn, then they aren't scary anymore. And the only failure is really not trying.
Right. And I've seen this in our own relationship in many ways. So I always went into situations trying to find an excuse why something happened if it failed. I wouldn't take onus of it. I was very good at arguing, manipulating, winning a verbal battle to the point where you wouldn't even engage sometimes because you're like, you're just gonna walk all over me
Yeah.
in this argument. And I always had a good argument in my pocket to explain away my actions because I was so afraid it meant something about me.
Mm-hmm.
You talk about how I was looking for validation in everything. So I didn't have security that I was okay with myself. So if I did something and it was wrong, admitting that I did it wrong was like blowing a hole in that validation. It was
Mm-hmm.
just blowing it all to
In
hell
your
and not
sense
having
of
any of
worth and
myself and
self.
worth. Yeah. And I was so stuck on having to have that sense of worth. And I was trying to extract it from everybody that I couldn't do that. And what I find now is that I mess it up as much as I ever did before, but I own it.
Mm-hmm.
It's mine. And I'm able to say, yeah, I am not acting out of a way that I like, that I
Mm-hmm.
respect. I respect, not you, not anyone else, but me. And that this is an opportunity for me to look deep inside myself and figure out why I'm acting in this way and why did I make that choice? And is there something different that I can choose to do differently? And this is where growth happens. This is where real growth
Mm.
happens.
Yes. And
This is where trust is born, right?
yes,
This is where your spouse looks at you and says, oh my goodness, he's taking ownership of his own actions and emotions. Well,
that's
that's
where
sexy
trust
as
is.
hell.
Yes, it is.
And that's where trust is born.
Trust isn't built in perfect choices or
No.
action. It's built in the honesty of accountability, saying, I can see the impact that had on you, or I can
Yes.
see that this was not done from a good place, or that I made a poor choice. That's when you become trustworthy because you say, I see the impact. I see the fallout from this, and I'm going to take ownership of it. If there's something, some way to make it right or to improve, that you see that and you take that.
Yep. And I did a complete shift of trying to change you to realizing I need to take ownership myself and I need to understand the things that I have control of and can change. And I no longer drive to this need to be perfect, the need to make perfect choices. I honor truth in a high regard, and intimacy with you is way more important than me looking good
Mm-hmm.
or making right choices or being perfect.
That looking good is so, I think it's one of the biggest hurdles of moving into that stage of integrity. We're so afraid as human beings to not be seen as enough or good or worthwhile or achieving or successful. And the willingness to be honest to your spouse or to family members or friends or whomever and say, I messed up, or this, I made a mistake, or that really was not coming from my best self and I want to make it right. That willingness to take on that accountability is really what launches you into that stage where you are not at the mercy of other people's opinions and you are more concerned about your truth and honesty and accountability than you are about others' opinions.
Yeah.
It's a big launch, though. It's a big,
It's scary,
yeah.
but it's so freeing too, because then you define what you believe in your own integrity is good for you. And why it's scary because you own it 100%. Whoa, is it fulfilling too? You can stand in a place and there can be chaos around you and you can be taking pot shots from other people and your self-worth can be dinged And you can stand in them and you can go, okay, this is not comfortable. This is not fun. But because I'm making these choices out of my own integrity and what I believe, I'm okay with it.
Mm-hmm. So let's go back to the beginning, to that couple who was really struggling. And you asked them, why are you in this marriage? If that answer had come from a place of integrity, what might have sounded like? What would have been an answer from integrity as opposed to an answer of, well, I'm just here because I'm supposed to be here and I'm going to call it noble to say I'm here, but I'm really not actually engaged in this marriage.
I almost would even have preferred the honesty of, hey, listen, I'm not even sure why I'm here. I've loved my wife at one point, but I'm struggling a lot and I'm hoping that she will change. Even though that's not the right thing to do, at least it was honest and truth in their integrity. I want her to do X, Y, and Z, and I think that she'll change. And when she changes, then I see myself being able to be in this great relationship and everything changing.
So that's like a stage 2 honest answer. Right. Still honest. What would a stage 3 answer
So a
be?
stage 3 honest answer would be, hey, I am in this relationship because I see that while my wife might have faults and things that I struggle with, that I have things that I need to work on and I need to choose to love her as she is so that I can work on being a better version of myself.
Maybe instead of I need to choose, I'm wanting to choose. Yeah.
Yep.
I'm seeing that I haven't and I want to lean into actually choosing.
Yep. Yes. Yes. Like you said, you could see those moments. We've seen it time and time again with our clients. And you talked about it's almost a surrender. I don't know if surrender is the perfect word to use because surrender feels like you're giving something up.
Right.
And you're not really giving something up at this point. You're rejecting false pretenses that you had in the past.
Yeah.
And the false pretenses that you're rejecting are, my spouse is going to change.
And when they do, then I'll be okay.
Yeah. Then I'll be happy if they do this.
Or then I'll be able to love them or feel loved or feel whole or belong or whatever.
Yeah, it's the one client that we love to talk about, the Ferrari. If you just get my Ferrari, it would be so much fun. Why do you want to go in the minivan? And he was finding like, maybe just minivans are great. I'm going to go with that, right? And I'm going to love my spouse right where she's at.
Right.
And the crazy thing about it is that's when they change.
I was just going to say, when I don't know I don't know another word other than surrender. And I admit that sounds like it's giving up, but it's more like giving up the wrong fight and engaging in the right fight. Right. And the fight isn't against your spouse. It's
yourself.
It's with yourself to say, how are you going to choose? What are you going to define as your choice? How are you going to be in this? And stop trying to control, manipulate, pressure, pout, avoid, hide, withdraw. Let me do it from all the sides. Stop not engaging or whatever it is you're doing to try and get control of them. And instead focus on yourself.
When I took the big old spotlight that I had been shining brightly at Amy, brightly, loudly, in many ways, and I turned it on myself, one, scary as hell, not pleasant, not what I wanted to do, but it makes me think of Taylor Swift's song.
It's me.
It's me.
Hi.
I'm the problem.
I'm the problem.
It's me. When I did, that's when my life changed. Mm-hmm. That's when our relationship changed.
And I was on the other side keeping score. If he loved me, he'd do this. If he loved me, he'd notice this. If he loved me, he'd help me with this. And my spotlight was, are you actually choosing to love him?
Yep.
Instead of keeping track and score of all the things you were or weren't doing, how is it that I was choosing to love you unconditionally?
Because when one spouse decides that they're going to do that, they're going to take a step of shining the spotlight brightly on themselves and moving into a place of integrity. Whether you like it or not, you're inviting your spouse to do the same.
Mm-hmm. And it's not, when you shine that spotlight on you, it's not like a self-pitying, woe is me, I'm a terrible person, destroying yourself. It's not that you are in any way attacking. It's just more like honesty. In our conversations, when we made these shifts, we were just able to tolerate more honesty about how we were showing up and taking ownership of it. It wasn't like we were attacking or belittling or lessening ourselves in any way. It was just like, yeah, I see that. And I can see that I need to address that. And I'm going to work on addressing that. It was actually more like stepping up. And so sometimes people see, and maybe it's sometimes the way I use that word surrender. It's not a surrender as in laying flat, laying down, you're right. It's all me. I'm all the problem. Everything is wrong because of me. It is an ownership of, you know what? That is my part. And I'm going to pick up my part and own it and address it and take care of it. And so it's not making yourself smaller in any way.
No, I think that what you're saying is so important, because as important as looking at the things that I needed to change and where I needed to be better, being honest also brought the other side about it. I could completely out of integrity say there were parts of me that I liked.
Mm-hmm.
There are things that were great about me.
Mm-hmm.
There were things that were godly about me.
Mm-hmm.
And I could accept both sides of those. When you don't accept one, you can't accept the other. So when you're so much trying to push off and saying, I'm not the problem, I don't accept it, you can't accept the great things about you either. And so I'm glad you brought this up, because it's very much not going into a pity of I'm an awful person. There's something wrong with me. I'm broken. We've talked about in the past over and over again. If you say that, it's a canary in the coal mine. Emotionally, you're on the wrong path. If you are thinking to yourself, I'm broken, there's something terrible about me, I'm about to have a pity party, I'm going to be a victim here. When you step into that place of integrity, you get to see that bright light shines on both.
Mm-hmm.
You're able to accept the good with the bad.
Mm-hmm. The strengths and the weaknesses.
And that's when we talk about what the real word perfection means. Wholeness. Being saying there's things that are great and godly about me, and there's things that really suck. And
then
aren't
just
so
like
godly. And then
the
there's
quirky and the,
and there's just
personal
things that don't really matter. But it really is seeing both sides of that story. But you can't really get there if you're not making choices out of integrity.
Right. When the spotlight is on someone else or on your spouse, you really aren't able to actually see yourself clearly. And that's what we're trying to help you do, is say, hey, take that spotlight off of them and turn it back to you. Make sure that you have a compassionate whole relationship with yourself. Make sure that you are honestly facing yourself. Make sure that you're showing up with integrity in the relationship. That's where your real power is at. That's where your power to influence the relationship is also really at. It doesn't come from pressuring, manipulating, controlling, avoiding, hiding, withdrawing, all of those things that we think change. It comes from taking that honest look back at yourself and showing up differently. That invites the relationship to expand and to change. And so even if that gentleman that you had asked in that coaching had said, you know what, I have been avoiding that question, and I want to spend some time thinking about why.
Yeah, I would have applauded that for sure.
That's an honest answer. That's saying,
I don't know. I want to think about it.
Let me look at me. Let me actually explore this, because I think I've just been going along because it was the easiest route, or saying that I have to be here because it didn't actually invite me to look at myself.
There's nothing wrong with taking the things that you've learned because of your faith, because you believe in a God, and applying that to the situation you're in. I am not saying that can help you understand who you are, and it can be very much part of your foundational place. It's when we say, I am doing this because God told me to do this, it's when you're in a very, very dangerous spot. You are not choosing out of your own integrity. Jennifer Finlayson 5 says something that I love that just struck me to the core. Blind obedience has no moral value. Let me say that again. If you are blindly being obedient, you are receiving zero moral value, because you're not making the choice out of integrity. You're not giving it your all because of your choice. You're doing it because you believe you have to. And when you're in that situation, you really cannot choose your spouse or yourself, because you're not taking ownership of your own choices.
And I will say, it is really useful in our faith and religion to look at where the values are and what they are encouraging us to grow and expand. So I do think that marriage is divine, designed by God. And I do think it is worth protecting and it is a foundation of our society. And so it's one thing to say, you know what, I've been taught how crucial marriage is, and I haven't really thought about how I'm showing up in my marriage. That's a way to take your faith and say, let me see what my faith is asking me. Let me see how my faith is asking me to grow. And if I am actually really making a choice, or if I'm just like, yeah, this is important, so I have to stay, but not actually really engaging. It's like a disinvested choice.
No, it's the easy way out, right? If we always put ourselves in that box and have a place to measure because we're doing the check boxes that we've been told we can check off. And if we can check those things off, then we're doing okay. And by the way, know what that makes us do is look at our neighbor and compare ourselves. At least I'm not doing those other things they're doing, right? And that makes a whole disingenuous relationship, not only with your spouse, but the people around you, people sitting in a congregation. I've said this before, but wouldn't it be amazing if we could sit down and say, hey, my name is Greg. I'm completely a mess. How are you? And you could say, hey, my name is Amy. I'm a complete mess too. It's nice to meet you. Let's be a mess together. Like the fronts we put on in the pews do not allow us to have that intimate relationship.
And it's not that you have to go airing all your dirty laundry. It's just being willing to be honest and say, hey, I really believe this. I'm really struggling here. I feel like I'm growing in this area. I feel like I've really gained some solidness in this area. Like, it's not about, again, belittling or having to put ourselves down. It's just more of an honest, let me take it to a parent. To a parenting situation. I really thought as a parent I had to have all the answers. And so in my conversations with my children, I would often come across as, I know this, I know this. And I find it's more,
How'd that work out for you?
yeah, not really. It's more helpful to say, you know what, here's what I'm thinking, and here's what I've learned, and here's what I don't know yet. And you are now opened up to a fertile ground for a conversation where you can explore together instead of, this is it. This is the way it has to be.
Or this is the way I used to think about it. And here's some of the things that I've learned over the years and applied to it. And this is what I think. Maybe it applies to you or not. Being so dogmatic in the way that people have to act to be worthy of your love and affection and attention. It's just so damaging because it destroys the intimate relationship. When you put requirements and criteria on what love looks like to you, I've just taken it lit in a match to intimacy.
Not in a good way.
Yeah. Not a fiery, sexy way.
I'm
No.
like,
No. Whew, maybe I shouldn't have used the lit the match because
Yeah.
that can bring other content. You have blown it to pieces, right? You have totally set it apart that will never work because you have set expectations on it. And even if those expectations are met, oftentimes those will be met out of obligation. And we know there's only one thing that comes from obligation, period, hands down. And that's resentment.
I do want to say that our minds like to create rules or expectations or guidelines, and that is a normal thing. Like, that's doesn't mean that something's wrong with you, but also being willing to look at those and say, you know what? Yeah, I really thought that if I was in a loving marriage, these would be the behaviors or the choices that my spouse would be making. And being willing to examine those. And maybe you want to keep some, and maybe you want to let go of some, or maybe you want to modify them. I feel like that's what honesty asks you to do, is take something that may have been rigid, but be flexible enough to look at it and re-examine it and then decide with integrity.
I think I've learned over this period of time, one, again, because I mess it up completely all the time. And I've seen the difference when I've messed it up completely and had all the expectations set and had the thought that if Amy would change and had the thought of God would tell me to do this and I would be able to do that. I've gone through all those processes. And I haven't become any better. I'm not a better person. I've just seen another side of it. And the joy and peace and happiness that's come from those parts of it are so complete. struggle is really there. The pains are still there. The choices are still had to be made. Some are good, some are bad. I still mess it up. But it's from a place that I know that I am choosing. And I will take ownership of whatever those actions may be, good, bad, or ugly. And it's really, again, where that intimacy between spouses can live and grow and develop, because we're both coming to it from an honest place of integrity. We can have compassion and love for each other. We don't have to enjoy every choice our spouse makes. They can annoy the hell out of us sometimes. We want them to change. We can be honest in a kind way about that. But at least we can have compassion about it, because we realize they're coming from a place of integrity on themselves too. And they're willing to step back and say, maybe I didn't get that quite right. Again, I hope this conversation wasn't a place that made you feel like we're on our soapbox preaching. I didn't want it to come from that place. I've just had a lot of experiences lately coaching people where I see them get stuck in this area. And I've also seen the changes that happen to an intimate relationship when both people can step in integrity. And that's where you want to be.
Or where at least one can, and that invites the relationship.
Well, that's why I said when one does it, it really invites the other one to step in with them. And then if the other one refuses, that's when you start thinking, is this in a relationship I want to be in? And making those choices. But it takes a long time to do that too. I think I've scared some of my
You
couple.
scared?
Well, yeah, I'm really kind of like blunt. And when I come into a coaching session and we talk about how we need to put divorce on the table, and and I'll tell them I don't know if this marriage is going to work, and that doesn't matter because I'm going to make a better version of yourself. I might come at it a little too strong in that area, and I know, and so I've had to not backtrack, but I've had to explain more fully of why I want to put them in that position and what I'm looking for the growth to do. And so sometimes I come across it a little too hard. I don't know what's a good word.
Direct.
A little too direct, maybe a little too passionate about it. But I do it because I've seen the joy that comes when they finally, and we'll use the word surrender because it's the best one we have, when we finally decide, I am going to step into my own integrity and I'm going to choose out of that own integrity. What a blessing, man. What a blessing to know that Amy knows the worst parts of me. And she knows that I F it up all the time. And she still chooses to love me. That's real choice. And that's true intimacy. And so hopefully some of these things ring true to you. And maybe this week you can stop and think, am I choosing from integrity? Or am I choosing out of fear and anxiety? Am I placing ownership on myself and my own choices?
Or am I choosing because I'm afraid of what others will think if I make a different choice, or I need to be seen in a certain way?
Is my anxiety driving the show?
Mm-hmm.
Is it making all the choices for me?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's trying to soften the blow or make things safe?
Mm-hmm.
Just examining where you're at and saying to yourself, how do I want to choose?
Who do I want to be? How do I want to learn to love? How do I want to be as a person?
And if you would like to have a conversation about this and go specifically in some details, we would love to have a consult with you. Please go up to our website at linkfordlifecoaching.com, and there's a little button on every page that says free consult, and set that consult up. And even if we just have a conversation and go through some of these things that you may be struggling in and how you're making choices, and talk a little personally on where we could see better places that you can step into your own integrity, we would love to have it. 45 minutes of it, we will love to do it. And if that's it, that's great. But we do this because we love it. Mm-hmm. It blesses us. In some ways it's selfish because we continue to be able to focus on our own marriage, and it stays fresh in our minds because we're working on a daily basis, right? Mm-hmm. It doesn't go stale. So a little bit of it's a selfishness, but it's just a pure love of seeing people find joy and pleasure in their marriage relationship.
Absolutely.
Please go like and subscribe. Give us stars and thumbs ups and whatever the app's thing of the day is. We love that. Share with your friends and family. Podcast. It's fun. I love watching it grow. So we appreciate everyone that's listening.
Yes, we do.
And until next time,
keep undressing your intimacy.
Bye-bye.